Take a good look at me. First impressions are important after all. Now when you look at me, what do you presume about me? Or more specifically, my intelligence. Intelligence is something that has become so hard to define that the way that it is done seems to differ from person to person to person. The way I interpret it and go off of is the ability to understand something on a conceptual level and carry it out. There's a reason for why I'm so certain of this definition and so specific. A very sugary reason. I recall in my European history class, our teacher would give a tube of Smarties to the highest scoring test taker. While the intent was, like the Smarties themselves, quite sweet, the implication left me a bit confused. Whenever I studied for a test, it didn't make me feel any smarter. In this case, all being smart meant was how well you regurgitated your studies. The problem is that intelligence is not what you know, but rather what you do with what you know. On a more specific level, this is where the debate begins to arise. In the world of psychology today, there are two dominant theories on what intelligence means. The older of the two, spearheaded by Charles Spearman, is general intelligence. It suggests one singular type of intelligence, which is the idea that IQ tests were based off of when they were first invented. Much newer is Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences. It proposes not one, not two, but 9 different facets of intelligence. It aims to categorize things such as hand-eye coordination, decision-making, logical mathematic analysis, among other things. From here on out, they'll go by the acronyms GI and MI respectively. Whether we know it or not, we consciously use MI every single day. Think about common terms such as street smarts and book smarts. Are those not to be assumed from a social standpoint, different ways in which we can consider someone intelligent? While on paper, MI is much more philosophically satisfying than GI, it's not backed by science whatsoever. While GI has had proven, viable impacts, as such, MI has been declared pop psychology by those in the field, which is on the same level of offense as calling your grandmother's cooking an acquired taste. But this segues into what I really aim to discuss here today: intelligence and schooling. To put it as bluntly as possible, the status quo of the education system wrongly does not perceive independence to be a virtue. There is a clear disconnect here, as many of the exact qualities exhibited by the greatest of entrepreneurs and inventors are seemingly absent from this process altogether. The greatest virtue one can have in this environment is being able to follow directions. Now, as a person, my big hobby is that I like to collect records, particularly shellac records from the early 20th century known as 78s. While on paper this might sound quite interesting, the problem is that my esoteric fascination demands I know the difference between Victor 24059 and Victor 38080. Sounds pretty crazy, doesn't it? Well, you might be wondering, why do I bring this up? It is for a good reason, of course. Even if I am a good student, do not be fooled, for I am not as smart as my AP Euro grade might have you believe. It's simply that the exact qualities that are so essential to being considered a good 78 collector transfer over seamlessly to that of a successful student, which explains why academic success can come so naturally for people. To warrant systemic overhaul on a scale of which I'm implying would take years of painstaking diplomacy. And while, like myself and many others my age, we can't necessarily do that. But what we can do is begin by addressing the problem. And to put it as bluntly as possible, it occurs to me that there are too many people at our age that can easily equate their intelligence, and by extension, their self-worth, to their academic performance, even though the two are very much independent of one another. It's an epidemic that ravages campuses on a frightening scale. For the day that your English paper gets marked just slightly below what you need to keep an A, for the day that your self-esteem follows the same track as your GPA, and for the day that you must brace the impact of unmet expectations. Now, I am not outright advising this generation of students to be complacent with failure, but to ensure they approach the future, confidently or academically or not, with a resounding certainty. With that said, there is no career in which the high levels of productivity you learn in school are not welcome. But that is what makes having genuine passion as the backbone of your career pursuits such an essential. If you're a hard worker with the right credentials and experience, you can work just about anywhere. But that doesn't necessarily make you happy just about anywhere. It's a difficult balancing act, passion and execution. I, for one, have known many people who wanted to be doctors simply because they had the execution to do so. But with no passion, they quickly moved on to something else. And I should know quite well, as I was one of them. I wanted to be a medical neurologist for the longest time because of the seemingly associated prestige that the role had. To me, it seemed to be a testament to my life's hard work. But after talking to actual neurologists about the bread and butter of their craft, I simply realized it just wasn't going to work for me. I decided to channel that same energy into computational neuroscience. By combining biology and mathematic algorithms, I was able to find the passion I was looking for. But for myself, along with many other high schoolers my age, there are still so many years and so many opportunities to figure out what that passion still is. So don't be disappointed if you see that it undergoes some change in the coming years. To bring about something conceptually innovative is one of the most important parts of this entire process, and yet it seems to be completely absent from the current state of education. Without any sort of direction, only focusing on your performance in something will not guide you towards any form of self-enrichment. But at the end of the day, consider this. Intelligence. What's in a name? Planning a bank heist might be a bit different intelligence-wise than acing a chemistry quiz. Because its definition seems to change circumstantially, it has no intrinsic meaning. I have known intensely intelligent people during my time in high school who have outright failed most, if not all, of their classes, as well as much of the other way around. But at the end of the day, if nothing else you take away from today, consider this. A D grade does not make you a D human, nor does an A grade render you an A1. Thank you.